My name is Susana Elizarraraz. Interesting story about my last name. I'm married. I took my husband's last name. We had no idea where the accent goes. It actually goes, I just learned this week, in that last A. So it's Elizarraraz. So in case you're wondering, and it's not difficult enough, you know. So again, my name is Susana Elizarraraz. I'm an advocate for my students and their families. I'm an agent for change for the neighborhood where I grew up, where I live, and where I still teach. I'm a voice for the kids and families who need one, and an exclamation point for the kids and the families that don't. I'm a fifth-year teacher at Gladstone Elementary in Northeast Kansas City, Missouri. Thank you, thank you. I graduated with my bachelor's in elementary education from UMKC, and then my master's in teaching English as a second language from Webster University. So before I begin, in case my last name didn't do it enough, I want to emphasize my Latinidad. Miles talked about representation, and we have plenty of research that shows that kids who have teachers that look like them are more likely to succeed, and particularly graduate from high school. It's part of the work that we do with the Latinx Education Collaborative here in Kansas City, yes. Led by Edgar Palacios. It is to recruit, retain, and to mold and help teachers, Latinx teachers, come to and stay in the classroom. So shout out to the LEC for those of us who know of it. Yes, Edgar. I am proudly a first-generation American, a high school and college graduate. However, I am not a first-generation teacher. My grandma was a teacher in Mexico, and my mother aspired to do the same, but then came the sacrifices that she made for me. The true sacrifice came in the selflessness and dedication of my parents and my family when they decided to emigrate to the US to help provide a better education for us. That is definitely not, though, to minimize the work and hard work that I put forth in my education, particularly because my education mostly came from a school system that was not built for people like my family and I. Let me elaborate. Thomas Jefferson, who's considered to be a pioneer of education, was once quoted saying that education's purpose was to, quote, rake a few geniuses from the rubbish. I imagine that people that looked like me and that had last names like Elizarraraz would not even be considered as a genius candidate in 1784. So it soon became very apparent to me and confirmed in my K-12 education that I wasn't the ideal candidate for college. My very first class that I sat in, the professor started talking about APA format. And I really thought there was gonna be a collective like, what? We don't know what that is. We're like first-year college students, right? There was no collective confusion. Susana was confused by herself. And you know, as funny as it is to look back on it now, I left that class thinking like, this isn't for me, right? How many of our kids, Latinx, kids of color, walk into our colleges every day and feel the same way, right? So I proposed a solution to this problem, that we trust our children and youth to admit to the problems that they face. And then we allow them to formulate solutions that are creative and realistic. How often do we as adults and teachers suppress the ideas of our students because they seem radical or impossible to us? What if at those moments we actually smothered ideas that could have been legitimate solutions to the problems that honestly we as adults have time and time again failed to solve, right? The Association for Middle-Level Education asks, can our students create science, not just hear about it and repeat it back to the teacher? Can they create math, art, technology, social studies, physical well-being? Civil discourse is my favorite. And compassionate communities? Can they write a book and not just parrot back its parts? Imagine a world where students are an active participant in society, and consistently worked with shareholders and policymakers to ensure that the world that they will soon function in and that honestly we will soon retire from, I mean, not so soon for me, but that eventually we'll retire from, right? How about we make sure that that world works for them? Imagine a world where youth sit at the table when we're discussing solutions for the day-to-day problems that we face. A news report here in Kansas City that read, quote, 3 KC public school students were shot in 9 days. Can anyone stop the bloodshed? That news story alerted my phone last week. A lot of us saw that news story. The Kansas City Star then said, quote, incredibly and indefensibly, Kansas City has reacted to this growing crisis with a collective shrug, which, fellow Kansas Cityans, we can probably admit that. How could our students have accessed that information and then turned it into a solution? What if instead of the question in the article being asked as a hypothetical one, youth could take that bad news and transform it into an idea and actually help solve that problem? Imagine the passion that the kids have, those kids that were impacted by that bloodshed, those kids that were shot and killed are friends of someone in KC Public Schools right now. Brothers and sisters and cousins. Imagine the passion that's there. And what if we fostered that? What if we said, is there a solution that you have, that you propose, and we as adults just facilitated that? Whether it be gathering people for a protest or doing research on how to effectively contact public officials and proposing a solution. We should be guiding our children, our youth, to make small changes in the way that they interact with information and with each other so that they can begin to change their understanding and formulate clear opinions and solutions. So admittedly, a lot of what we see in today's society is scary, and it makes any right-minded person feel uneasy. I'd like to think that I'm a right-minded person, so a lot of what we see makes me feel uneasy. But what if we taught our children that fear can actually turn into productivity? If they handle it in the right way, and with the tools that they actually already have at their fingertips, they could be provided with an avenue for understanding, clarity, and action. I imagine that a lot of those students are scared, confused, angry. How do we as adults facilitate that and then help them turn that into clarity first and then into action? We have students that joined Rethink ED at some point this week. We have students that'll be at Evolucion in November with the LEC. And I'm pretty sure that high school students, K-12 students, can agree that they're ready for this. Let me paint a beautiful picture for you. Students come to school with ways that they can make the school, the neighborhoods, their city a better place. And then we as teachers and mentors, we can facilitate their day to help them become the agents of change that are needed. They consistently self-monitor themselves about what's going well and what isn't, and then use their access to technology and information to model for us what a perfect solution might look like. So, leaving here today, I want educators, mentors, and parents to consider these questions. How can you help transform the way that our youth listens to and transforms information? How can we encourage our kids to use technology to change the things about their lives and communities that could be better? In what ways, and this is a big one because I have to ask myself this all the time, in what ways are we inhibiting our children's creativity in the classroom and our homes by not encouraging them to find for themselves the information that I already know how to find? I hope that one day our kids, our youth, can consistently be the leaders to pave the way for solutions to these adult problems, because ultimately they are the leaders of our future. Before I conclude, I do want to acknowledge the teachers in the room. Shout out to the teachers in the room. You have a very hard job. From the bottom of my heart, seriously, first generation little Susana, who just loves school, I really appreciate, and kids like me appreciate, teachers that are already dedicated to ensuring that children and youth are provided with the most equitable opportunities in school and ultimately in life. I especially want to highlight those teachers that are willing to push against the system that they work for to ensure that equity is provided for children who are commonly underserved. Thank you.